Certainly more further off. Generally, this VR, AR, metaverse, immersive space, we need both software and hardware to develop significantly.
Yeah.
I mean, simple example that's tangible to everybody. You go to the cinemas and you watch things on a 2D screen. And while there are movies in 3D, you will see that it's a minority of people that opt in for that. So even though it creates a whole third dimension, it's not the majority. The majority of people do not watch movies in 3D. Why? Because the hardware is not good enough. Wearing those goggles is not always a pleasant experience for everybody. Wearing those 3D glasses is not the norm, because we still need to develop the hardware a little bit more.
And because I know you've been on both sides, investor side, company owner side, what do companies generally look for now?
I don't think what companies look for is what people should be. I don't think it's what your audience should be working on, because by the time they work on it, it's already outdated, right? I think everybody right now is sitting on a shift. So I would say start working on what's needed in 3 years, not what people are looking at today, right? In my own generation, and I'm not that old, I have seen an important wall break down, and that wall is information. So in my own generation, when I was 4 years old, 3 years old, there was a wall that blocked people from having information. And I'm, of course, talking about internet. As soon as the internet was created, information was available to all at the click of a button to anyone with an internet access. Now, that wall still exists for those who do not have internet. So if you go to any indigenous community or parts of, remote communities anywhere in the world that do not have access to internet, you will see that they are significantly different than the rest of us because they don't have access to information. So education already started changing, because when I was in school, and probably for you as well, we're still along the same lines, that you are required to memorize stuff, right? You're required to retain information. Why? Because you couldn't access it. So the only way to have it was to own it. But now you don't need to own information. You just need access to it. So me having an encyclopedia does not make me smarter than you. Whereas 50 years ago, it did, because I had information you didn't have. Now you just have to look it up online. And as long as you can, you have as much access as I do. So we're already seeing education change from owning, retaining, memorizing information to just learning how to access it, how to filter it, how to use it. And I think we're going to go further and further down that road as we have ChatGPT and other things come in. Is education absolutely has to change. And I'll be the first to say at the front of the line,
tuning in. My name is Gabriel Huber, and you are listening to the Gabriel Huber Show. I am thrilled to have on the next guest. He's a great friend of mine, a great coach, great mentor, and he has been on stage with the biggest names on the planet, presidents, billionaire company founders. He coaches celebrities and Fortune 500 companies. And today he will be talking about the changing world order and how we have to and can adapt to it. And to give you a quick overview about what he does and what he is all about, I will share a video of his. Let's go enjoy the podcast.
my name is Dan Ram. And I am a global MC.
This is it. We're about to start. It's gonna be epic. Got you feeling good. 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 Yeah. Got you feeling good. 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 Yeah. Got you feeling good. Got you feeling good. Got you feeling good.
So every place has its dark side. What we have to do is stop regionalizing problems and start owning it and saying everybody has to roll up their sleeves Everybody has to pull up their socks, everybody, and there are no exceptions to this. Every generation, every people group, everybody, and has to do the right thing. And the right thing is a lot of things, because we have a lot of things to fix. Inequality, one of the things that you mentioned, sustainability, saving the planet, another thing that we have to think about. We have to think about better education, because that whole system is very broken. We got to think about what AI is going to do to jobs. I mean, there are so many things that we got to fix, and we got to do it now. It's not necessarily Dubai, but this region. What America used to be 30, 40 years ago is what the Middle East is right now. It is ripe for new opportunities, ripe for new ideas, ripe for new talent. It is the place to be. But on a personal level, I was actually born in Abu Dhabi. So I have my birthplace and some of my family right around the corner from Dubai. It's why you and I continue our friendship, because you were in the audience. And I love investing in people, regardless of title or accomplishment. So events are another place where I spend a lot of time as an MC or a moderator or an interviewer. And I would say the last way that I invest in people is currently investing time, resources, and money into startups. I still believe that startups are a great place for new ideas and innovation. They're fast, they're agile. So at the moment, I'm looking at setting up a new car rental business in Mallorca. I'm investing in an AI company that I'm really excited about, because I'm excited about AI in general and what that can do. I was investing until recently in a metaverse company. So yeah, whatever is new, exciting, I want to be there, because I'm just hungry to learn. Thank you for having me. And thank you to all our listeners in advance and viewers in advance for watching this episode.
So I know you're located in Dubai right now. Why Dubai?
Oh, this is the land of opportunities. Not necessarily Dubai, but this region. What America used to be 30, 40 years ago is what the Middle East is right now. It is ripe for new opportunities, ripe for new ideas, ripe for new talent. It is the place to be. But on a personal level, I was actually born in Abu Dhabi. So I have my birthplace and some of my family right around the corner from Dubai.
Okay, nice. Now, you're saying Dubai is great for innovation at the moment. What do you think makes it so? And are there any other cities or countries where you see a lot of potential at the moment?
For sure. You know, I believe that every place has a competitive advantage. It's just about knowing your strength and playing into it. So there is no better or worse. It's not a ranking. I think it's just about optimizing for what resources you have. So what this region has, of course, is a lot of wealth, and startups and innovation needs money to go into R&D, to go into new systems, new business models, and all of that. That's one. Second, oh my gosh, this place is international. It honestly feels like I'm walking through the United Nations or something. You cannot get from hotel room to lobby without meeting at least 4 or 5 different nationalities. And trust me, man, when you have that number of nationalities, languages, cultures, perspectives in a place, it is a perfect fertile ground for new thinking. It is impossible to be around so much diversity and not have some new ideas and new thinking. So that's the second thing. Third, this is a young country. You know, this country, don't quote me on this, is 60 or 70 years old. So what this means is there aren't legacy problems. For example, if you want to create a new public system in America, you want to create a new public system in Germany, I mean, can we talk about where I actually live, Germany? The Deutsche Bahn, everybody knows that system does not run, but they cannot demolish it and start from zero. Whereas here, they'll talk to Elon Musk and set up the Hyperloop faster than any other country will. Or say blockchain, you know, everyone is excited about blockchain being the future of finance, future of contracts, future of a lot of different things. And the Dubai government was one of the first governments to actually build their government on the blockchain. Why? Because they don't have 300 years of constitution, 500 years of traditions to preserve. This is a fresh new space. So these are just some of the reasons why I think that this region can use what it has, which is it's a young country, it's a diverse country, and it's a wealthy country to its advantage.
And do you think, how does Dubai compare to the rest of Saudi Arabia? Because I know there are a lot of allegations about that Middle Eastern region, about how they treat certain aspects of the population. Do you think those allegations are justified for Dubai as well or not?
look, there's no place anywhere in the world where there aren't pros and cons. And I'm not saying that to whitewash or greenwash, right? But what it takes is an awakening. Everybody has to become awakened. So this isn't about a region. This is not about a religion. This is not about a people group. This is about humans. As humans, we need to be awakened. You cannot be in America and ignore the absolute terrible war atrocities that they have created around the world against the UN, against other countries saying don't do it. You cannot be in Europe and not see the years and years of colonialism and destruction that has happened, or the manufacturing processes that have polluted the planet. So every place has its dark side. What we have to do is stop regionalizing problems and start owning it and saying everybody has to roll up their sleeves, everybody has to pull up their socks, everybody, and there are no exceptions to this. Every generation, every people group, everybody, and has to do the right thing. And the right thing, it's a lot of things, because we have a lot of things to fix. Inequality, one of the things that you mentioned, sustainability, saving the planet, another thing that we have to think about. We have to think about better education, because that whole system is very broken. We got to think about what AI is going to do to jobs. I mean, there's so many things that we got to fix, and we got to do it now.
And what kind of organizations do you think are needed for that? Are those nonprofits? Are they governmental structures? Is it just people individually changing that? How do you see that process unfolding?
Why not everybody? I mean, I'm an ecosystem builder at the end of the day, right? So if I can snapshot you 10 years ago, for example, I was simultaneously, so 10 years ago, I was what, 24, 25. So I was simultaneously a entrepreneur building one of Ireland's first co-working spaces. I was simultaneously a lecturer in the university trying to teach the next generation of entrepreneurs. I was simultaneously advising the Irish government on national policy and entrepreneurship, specifically around immigration law to attract talent and around co-working spaces. I was simultaneously working with venture capital funds to find them great opportunities for investment in various industries. So me alone as an individual was actively supporting startups, funding, policymakers / government, and education. 4 pillars. So I firmly believe that all are required. We cannot say, oh, it's just about universities teaching better systems. And you cannot say it's just about government having better taxation, or it's just about big companies, but everybody's got to do their part. And we can be multifaceted. So I'm at the end of the day about ecosystem. I believe that everybody has to be a part of the ecosystem, and there are no exceptions.
And you've already mentioned a few projects you've been working on in the past. What are current things you're working on, and what are you looking forward to most in the next years?
I believe at the heart of every major problem, obstacle, challenge in the world is a need for a solution. And personally, I think that talent / people is what we need to solve it. So I am investing in people. I do that in many different ways. One, I coach. I love working with aspiring and inspiring leaders, change makers, CEOs, entrepreneurs, anybody that is ambitious. So I coach them on public speaking, on mindset, on productivity, efficiency, whatever it needs to make sure that they are the best that they can be. Second, I love doing workshops, because big companies, accelerators, incubators are great places where we can learn together as peers. Third, as you know, I love doing events. It's probably what people know me best for, because it's where the cameras are rolling, right? We don't have cameras rolling in a private coaching or a workshop, but I have been seen on stage with some of the biggest Hollywood celebrities, Grammy-winning artists, award-winning athletes, presidents, billionaire founders. But I must add that while that association is always nice, my heart is for people. And if you look at where my eyes are, my eyes 99% of the time are in the audience. It's why you and I continue our friendship, because you were in the audience. And I love investing in people, regardless of title or accomplishment. So events are another place where I spend a lot of time as an MC or a moderator or an interviewer. And I would say the last way that I invest in people is currently investing time, resources, and money into startups. I still believe that startups are a great place for new ideas and innovation. They're fast, they're agile. So at the moment, I'm looking at setting up a new car rental business in Mallorca. I'm investing in an AI company. that I'm really excited about, because I'm excited about AI in general and what that can do. I was investing until recently in a metaverse company. So yeah, whatever is new, exciting, I want to be there because I'm just hungry to learn.
So you already talked a bit about some of the new emerging technologies like AI and how that's going to change the economical landscape, of course, and everybody's of course concerned about that and thinking about how we will solve this issue. Where do you stand on AI and maybe also the metaverse moving into that realm?
My position is I'm excited about it. Yeah, just like with anything that is new, because I'm not afraid of change. See, if you're afraid of change, you have a lot to be scared about because it is disruptive. For sure, these are disruptive technologies. But I think change is good. You learn through change, you grow through change. It creates new opportunities, new jobs, new mindsets, new everything. And of course, it comes at a cost, right? Financial, organizational, structural, systemic. Some of those are going to be hard hits for sure, but I wouldn't say I'm against it. If AI, so let's go with something that's a little bit more tangible. If robotic arms, to be specific, right? If we integrate more robots and they take over some of the factory work, some of the repetitive work, some of the organization, sorry, by organization, I mean processes, process-oriented stuff. If they replace that, I'm okay with that. In the short term, it's going to hurt people who have those jobs. But in the long term, we don't need people to break their back, to be put in dangerous situations, to risk their lives to do these jobs. We don't. It's not necessary. It's not efficient. It's not productive. And it's not, in the long run, at the macro level, beneficial to society. But if we retrain them, right? So I'm not about these people being unemployed. I'm about them doing jobs that they would be good at and that would be beneficial to society. And so they can be retrained to do something else. So if robots can free us up to be more human, I'm all for that. But yes, in the short term, it will hurt some people.
And do you have the same feelings about the metaverse, or do you think that's a little further off?
Oh, it's certainly more further off. Generally, this VR, AR, metaverse, immersive space, we need both software and hardware to develop significantly.
Yeah.
I mean, simple example that's tangible to everybody. You go to the cinemas and you watch things on a 2D screen. And while there are movies in 3D, you will see that it's a minority of people that opt in for that. So even though it creates a whole third dimension, it's not the majority. The majority of people do not watch movies in 3D. Why? Because the hardware is not good enough. Wearing those goggles is not always a pleasant experience for everybody. Wearing those 3D glasses is not the norm, because we still need to develop the hardware a little bit more.
And adding on to the AI kind of area, we've seen a lot of talk about the ChatGPT. I'm sure you've played with it and have heard people talk about it. How do you
and use it actively?
How do you think that's going to change the need for universities? Because I know you went to very good universities. You went, for example, to Yale. How do you think that the universities will change? Because they will have to adopt somehow. How do you think they will adopt?
Yeah, I mean, in general, we, in my own generation, and I'm not that old, I have seen an important wall break down. And that wall is information. So in my own generation, when I was 4 years old, 3 years old, there was a wall that blocked people from having information. And I'm, of course, talking about internet. As soon as the internet was created, information was available to all at the click of a button to anyone with an internet access. Now, that wall still exists for those who do not have internet. So if you go to any indigenous community or parts of, remote communities anywhere in the world that do not have access to internet, you will see that they are significantly different than the rest of us because they don't have access to information. So education already started changing, because when I was in school, and probably for you as well, we're still along the same lines, that you are required to memorize stuff, right? You're required to retain information. Why? Because you couldn't access it. So the only way to have it was to own it. But now you don't need to own information. You just need access to it. So me having an encyclopedia does not make me smarter than you. Whereas 50 years ago, it did, because I had information you didn't have. Now you just have to look it up online. And as long as you can, you have as much access as I do. So we're already seeing education change from owning, retaining, memorizing information to just learning how to access it, how to filter it, how to use it. And I think we're going to go further and further down that road as we have ChatGPT and other things come in. Is education absolutely has to change. And I'll be the first to say at the front of the line that we have to rethink all of it. Because the problem is education is a very old school, slow moving, slow to change institution. That we have to rethink all of it. Because the problem is education is a very old school, slow moving, slow to change institution. The average teacher and principal is not incentivized or excited about change. So while the students are saying, let us use ChatGPT, it is the teachers and principals who are saying, no, that's not how you do education. So we already see generational issues and institutional issues with change, but it's going to happen. I'm afraid slowly, but it's necessary. Because you don't have to. For example, I learned how to write a letter, right? On a piece of paper, where to put the address, top left, where to put the date, how to write dear, blah, 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 put a comma, 3 paragraphs and a signature. Why? I have not sent a letter ever. Okay, maybe in middle school, I sent letters to pen pals, but why? I mean, now you would say learn how to write an email, but I would say, why? Learn how to quickly chat, do a video call. Yeah, that's what I coach people on. How do you appear well on camera? Because we spend more time doing this than writing letters with a stamp and going to the post office. So we are adopting. We are adapting. I am supportive of change. The only thing, my criticism is it's not fast enough. I just feel the sense of urgency. So absolutely, we're going to incorporate ChatGPT. Absolutely, we're going to incorporate AI. Absolutely, I would be surprised if the average student is not using an AI PowerPoint builder, for example, right? There is no need that you need to spend 3 hours looking through designs on PowerPoint. No need. You just type it in to the search bar on an AI, not the search bar, the prompt bar, and just say, I want a fun, playful design with primary colors yellow and red on the topic of blah, blah, blah. And it will build it to you in seconds. That's the direction we should be going. But I think a lot of education still, let's teach you how to use Microsoft Office. First, move your mouse to the start button. We don't need that.
Yeah. You've been talking a bit about skills right now, which skills are important or are not important anymore. What do you think are the important skills, especially for the young people listening, that they should be gathering for the next years, especially with AI around the corner and all this emerging technology? And what is important for example, people looking for a new job? How would you approach a job interview nowadays and in the future? And because I know you've been on both sides, investor side, company owner side, what do companies generally look for now?
I don't think what companies look for is what people should be. I don't think it's what your audience should be working on, because by the time they work on it, it's already outdated, right? I think everybody right now is sitting on a shift. So I would say start working on what's needed in 3 years, not what people are looking at today, right? Be ahead of the curve. Do you know what my PhD is on?
I don't remember, no.
Okay. I'm currently doing a PhD on the topic of adaptability. So I'm at a German university, actually one of the finest engineering universities in Germany, and I'm part of the entrepreneurship chair studying on the topic of adaptability. Now, I've had a little bit of an advantage on this topic because my dad is a retired diplomat. So I spent my entire life moving countries every 2 to 3 years. And let me tell you something, when you are transported and transplanted into another place, it really opens your mind and really forces you, doesn't give you the choice, it forces you to learn to adapt. And this has become my superpower. There is no age group, people group, or geographic space that you cannot put me into and I won't thrive. I know it sounds egotistical, but I'm confident on the skill set because it comes down to one simple word: adaptability. Those who adapt thrive. In fact, one of my most popular keynotes that I do with big companies and startups is evolve or die. It's the same concept, adapt or die. Essentially, if you can adapt, you can thrive. not just survive, but really thrive. So this is, to me, the most important skill set. Yes, communication is important. Yes, leadership is important. Yes, team building is important. Note that these are all soft skills, because soft skills are really ultimately what make you successful, not hard skills. I can teach anybody how to code, literally anybody. I can teach anybody how to do algebra. I can teach anybody how to build a table, but I cannot teach you as efficiently how to be honest. Either you are or you're not. I cannot teach you as efficiently how to be assertive or take initiative. It's either in you or it's not. I can coach you, but with varying levels of results. So all of what I think people should work on is soft skills, not hard skills. Everything you can Google, you can look up online, you can use AI, or you can take a course on. Every hard skill can be learned. But soft skill is what you are responsible for. It's your introspection. It's your reflection that goes, I need to grow in confidence. I need to grow in communication skills. I need to grow in networking. I need to grow in sales. I need to develop this soft skill. And I would say of all the soft skills, I would put adaptability at the highest level. Because if you can learn to adapt, you can learn any skill, any. If you can learn to adapt, you can thrive in any situation, any. Go to prison, you thrive. Lose your business, you thrive. Lose your best friend, you thrive because you learn to adapt. It's just another situation. It's just the next platform for you to thrive. That's what adaptability is all about. Learning how to deal with next. So that is what, and if people are curious how to do it, because it sounds really inspirational, but how, Dan, watch my latest TEDx talk. It's my 6th one, and it's on the topic of adaptability. And I give 2 tips on how to adapt. So just Google Dan Ram TEDx and you'll see it there on YouTube.
Now, just recently you mentioned confidence and communication as being vital. I mean, you're excellent at that because you stand in front of 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 people, sometimes in front of big audiences with big speakers. If anybody wants to go into the speaking business, do something public speaking wise, how does one get into it? And how do you maintain confidence on stage?
Yeah, so I have to disclose to everybody that this is not how I always was, right? The reason I coach on these topics is because I personally have transformed. Who I was, let's now go 20 years ago when I was in my teens, and actually from the day I was born until my teens, because 15, 16 is when I started changing. My personality, I think, was similar for you as well, that you really grew, developed in those years. So prior to that, I was a shy, introverted, socially awkward, nerdy child. Those would have been the adjectives. Not charismatic, not confident, not motivational, not a leader, none of the things that maybe people perceive in me. So I have worked at it. So for anyone who's listening and going, it's nice for these 2 guys to be confident, I couldn't do it, I'm saying you can, because I did. I just realized that those skills are necessary, not just in sales, not just in public speaking, but in life. If you want to be a great friend, you got to learn how to communicate. If you want to negotiate for something, you got to know how to communicate. If you are going to rent a place and you want to convince the landlord to take a risk on you, to take a bet on you, you got to know how to communicate. So to me, I just saw that this was essential for life, not just for public speaking. And also note, public speaking was only the last 5 years of my life. I've had many other careers along the way. And public speaking in general, confidence in general, individuality in general have been helpful in all of these areas, personal and professional. So first of all, I want to tell you it's a journey. Trust me, I'm still learning, right? So even who you see today, in 10 years, it's going to be an even more evolved version of myself. So I'm leaving room for myself to grow, and I hope everyone watching and listening will also leave room to grow. It's a journey, first of all. Second, you can do it, but you got to do it. To me, this is the difference between having an advisor and having a coach. An advisor is maybe someone who has done it themselves, and so you're inspired being next to them or close to them. A coach works with you to develop yourself. And this is why I've really enjoyed coaching people, because I love bringing out the best in people. So whatever it is that you're trying to grow in, find a good coach, but you can do it, and you only will have to make it happen. So yeah, that is kind of my 2 cents on it, that what you see today is a journey. I hope for everyone listening, fall in love with the journey because it'll get you wherever you want to go.
Now, I know you're big into having mentors, and now you've mentioned coaches as well. Which speakers do you look up to in the speaking kind of area, or that may do something similar as you? And do you know any of them personally, or how do you learn from them?
So I go with categories rather than individuals. So I have a couple categories I look at. Now I'm in a little bit of a niche because I am an MC/moderator. And while I do a decent amount of keynote speaking and sitting on panels, what I love most is MCing and moderating. So there's no school for this. There's no certificate for this. So I just have to borrow from a couple of different categories. Category number one, late night show TV hosts. Your Jimmy Fallons, your Jimmy Kimmels, your John Olivers, Trevor Noah, all these guys, because one, they interact with live audiences. Two, they're experts at building empathy and connection with whoever they're interviewing. Three, they're often quite creative with their segments. So they might have some games or some skits or some music, which brings a bit of a flair, makes it TV worthy. So these are some of the things I learned from them. Second category are pastors, because pastors have to come and speak to the same audience, pretty much the same audience every week. And they got to bring some new value every time. I think this is an added pressure. Can you come back, deliver the same format, but new value in the same format? So I love, because they use the same text, it's always the Bible. They speak to pretty much the same audience and always in the same way. Either it's a 20-minute sermon or a 45-minute sermon. They're usually in the same stage. So how do you bring something new and fresh even in the same? I love that. Third, I watch magicians. Why? Because magicians are expert storytellers. They play to your emotions. I mean, after all, magicians are just tricksters. They're tricking you. But how do they trick you? Through their storytelling, through their movement, through their body language. I love watching how they use sound and lights and body and voice in order to trick. And not that I'm in the business of tricking people, but they are experts at using what they have to bring people on an emotional journey. And the fourth category is stand-up comedians, because stand-up comedians are rehearsed, but highly adaptive. So while they know their jokes, they have to communicate effectively to whatever their crowd is. So they might do that same spiel, that same 30-minute segment, but if they're in a comedy club in New York, and then the next day they're in a comedy club in Nebraska, they got to change the game to get the same laughs. And I love that. I love that they know their jokes, they know who they are, but they're so responsive, so reactive, so in tune with their audience. And if there's a heckler, that's some of their best work. And it's that level of spontaneity, improvisation, reaction, and connection. I mean, they got seconds to connect with an audience, right? Seconds, otherwise they get booed. So I love that. So these are some of the categories that I pay a lot of attention to.
And now you said you only do a few keynote or you do more emceeing than keynote speaking, but how does emceeing differentiate from just a keynote speak or speech?
This is a made-up definition because there is no one form of keynote speaking and one form of emceeing. They are pretty broad. There are MCs that are entertainers. There are MCs that are journalists. There are MCs that are celebrities, and there are MCs that are professional. So it's a broad spectrum. But my made-up definition is that MCs are responsible for the day-long, not segment long, but day-long experience of an attendee. Whereas a speaker is responsible for selling a product, a service, an idea, a thought. That's what they're responsible for. MCs are responsible for an audience, and speakers are responsible for content. MCs have to be responsive. They have to be good at improvising, reacting. Speakers don't. They don't have that responsibility. They just have to give their talk. They're not responsible if the tech goes wrong, whereas the MC is. MCs are on the side of the event organizers, and speakers are paid by event organizers. They're on their own side. So these are some of the big differences. MCs are involved days, weeks, months in advance of the event. Speakers are responsible on the day that they show up, and they're involved on the day. maybe a briefing call, but not more than that. MCs are team players, right? When I'm on stage, I have to interact with the sound guys, the stage crew, the producers, the team backstage. I got to interact with all of them. As a speaker, I don't have to. It's nice to, but I don't have to. I have to interact with myself and with the audience. So these are some of the differences. It's a very, very, very different art form.
And it's obvious, I think, to everybody listening, that that's something you're very passionate about, connecting with people, speaking in front of people. How would you advise people to find their passion? Because I know it wasn't an extremely fast start for you either, but how do people find a passion and really thrive in what they want to do?
I love this question. If there was one gift I could give everybody, is that they could live out their purpose. Now, I changed the word from passion to purpose because I think purpose is a higher calling than passion. Now, these are also made up definitions, but I think passion is an emotional feeling about something, whereas I think purpose is a spiritual enlightenment. They're very, very different. So I'm passionate about ice cream, but I'm not going to become an ice cream owner. I'm passionate about people, but I'm not going to be a counselor, you know? So I would separate it, passion and purpose. And I would say people should find their purpose. How do you do that? Trying stuff, failing at stuff, stepping out of the comfort zone. So these are all nice buzzwords. So let me make it practical. All through my 20s, I said yes to every opportunity that came by, voluntary or not. All through my 20s, I moved countries. I lived in Indonesia, I lived in India, I lived in Ireland, I lived in the US. So I stepped out of my comfort zone. All through my 20s, I made friends with many different groups of people. I made friends with older people, younger people. I made friends with people working in charities, people working in government, people working in startups. I made friends with people who are very accomplished, people who are not. So I just found what kind of circle of people really brought life into me. And through all of this, I was just paying attention. In what situations do I thrive? And what situations am I struggling? And purpose was along the way of that self-discovery. Because at some point I realized I've arrived. And why have I arrived? Because the work I do now is a culmination of a lot of hard work, and yet it feels effortless. It's such a weird dichotomy because I have decades of experience and expertise, and yet it feels like I'm not even trying. It takes so much creativity and ideation and reading, and yet it seems to also flow. Like they both happen at the same time, you know? So to me, this is when you know you have arrived. When you feel confident, experienced, knowledgeable, that you're in the right place at the right time, and yet it just happens. It's just creating within itself. But how I got there was through this process of trial and error. And some things I was good at, some things I was bad at. Some things I thrived, some things I struggled with. So just put yourself in as many situations. I was a radio presenter, I was an entrepreneur, I was a consultant, I was an investor, I was a policymaker, I was a lecturer, I was volunteering in a band, I was volunteering in a choir, I was a singer. I tried so many things in my 20s. And then the day I arrived on stage, I brought all that experience with me because you cannot lose that experience. But that situation, that felt effortless. That felt like I was meant to be there always. So that's what I'd say to everybody who's listening. If you're in your 20s, try. And if you're in your 30s, 40s, and 50s and you haven't arrived, try. It's harder, but it doesn't stop you from trying.
Now, you've mentioned you should have different kind of experiences, gain a lot of different things, try a lot of different things. I know at the same time you're very big on values and routines as well. How do you maintain that balance between values, routines, what's important to you? Because I know it's religion and family, for example, to you. How does one maintain that through maybe the ups and downs or trying new things?
Yeah, values also are discovered. If you don't think too much, I guess you just take on the values of your parents. But if you step out of your comfort zone, you discover the values that are important for you. So, for example, some of the things I learned from my parents are things like honesty, integrity, hard work. Oh my gosh, my parents have incredible work ethic. Incredible work ethic. I learned from them how to manage emotions. I learned how to introspect, how to be reflective. I learned so much of who I am was thanks to my parents. But when I stepped out of the comfort zone, I learned some things for myself. For example, we don't have entrepreneurs in our family. Nobody, no entrepreneurs. I was the first to step out and try doing something new. And I realized that I love starting things. It's why one of my mottos is start now, start simple. I am really, really good at starting things. What some people say is impossible, I'm thinking I'm going to make it possible. What some people say cannot happen, I'm thinking I'm going to make it happen. I love that, but I didn't learn that from my parents. My parents are very good at working with systems, and I like to create systems. My parents love perfecting a wheel or a process, whereas I like inventing the wheel or process. So it was only when I stepped out of the comfort zone that I learned those things. Also, my dad, as I mentioned, is a diplomat. So he is a well-informed, well-rehearsed speaker. But it was only when I started playing jazz music compared to classical music, which is what I was trained. So I was trained to read notes, to play the song as it was written. But when I stepped into the world of jazz, which is out of my comfort zone, I learned how to improvise. And I realized that I love improvising, riffing, making things up more than I love honoring what the original creator had purposed. And this is, again, one of those differences. My dad is a great speaker as a rehearsed speaker, and I'm a great speaker as an improv speaker. For example, use this interview. I don't think I've said too many ums or uhs, and I have barely paused to think, not because I'm not thinking, but I'm able to do it simultaneously because this is what I thrive in. If you had asked me, Dan, can you write a book on these 20 questions I'm going to ask you? I would have said no, but Dad would have said yes, because rehearsing and preparing is what he's excellent at. Improvising is what I'm good at. So these are things that I think even values have to be discovered. Don't just assume your values, discover it. How? Step out of the comfort zone, say yes to everything, do short-term projects, make lots of friends, go on new adventures. Even values fall into the category of finding your purpose.
Well, Dan, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. It was, as always, phenomenal to talk to you. Any last notes, or where can the people find you?
Yes, if I can help you, if anything I've said has inspired you, please reach out. I am here to invest in people. That includes you listening or watching. Serious offer. If you DM me, and everybody knows this, I personally will respond to you. So just look up Dan Ram on any social media, on my website, write to me, and I will personally respond to you. That is my commitment. I'm here for you. I believe in you. Let's go.